All right. Anyone have any club health and welfare to share? I'm not aware of.
So Blake had surgery on her throat on Tuesday. There was a mass, I guess, that they removed. Not cancerous. She's okay. She's now talking again, which is actually the downside, I think. I know. She was. That's right. Yeah. She wasn't talking at the beginning of the week. Now she said she was yelling again. So she's kind of progressing, but she's okay. And I texted her and I said, I heard you had emergency surgery. Wasn't quite emergency, but it was enough that their staff didn't know, so they were canceling at the last minute. So not for me, by the way. For her. I don't get my hair done there. But anyway, she did have surgery, and she's doing better.
Thank you. All right. Birthdays and anniversaries. Man, do I have a lot to share. Well, last week we were at the shelter and we were having a picnic. It was gorgeous. And I'm sorry for anybody that missed it. But I want to catch up on anniversaries and stuff we didn't share. So on wedding anniversaries, we had Phyllis and Ted Seeley who celebrated on the 9th of October anniversary. Val's birthdays, last week we had Bobby Bennett's on the 13th. Member birthdays, we had Ron Napier on the 12th, Michelle Napier on the 13th, and Mark Durham on the 13th. Member anniversaries that were celebrated this past week are Ken Crump, 21 years. Ken Evans, 4, Ken. Dan McGinnis, 21 years. Bob Melford, 24 years. And Doug Stanley, 24 years, all celebrating on the 12th. And we have Danielle Sterling for 33 years on the 9th. So this week, no anniversary, no wedding anniversaries this week. And Scout's birthday is Betty Brown on the 20th. And member anniversaries this week. Member birthdays include Kristen Bell on the 16th, Brett Haynes on the 17th. Brett's not on with us, so happy birthday, Brett. Jason's going to celebrate on the 19th. And Eric Ellis is going to celebrate. So happy birthday to those numbers. Announcements. Ken, do you want to give us a wrap up on we got the count total?
I don't even know what it is, but I think we for the Edward golf tournament, $16,000 some dollars.
We were at 17.
I was 17. Kim's at 7.
We're going back to that.
I know it was somewhere 16. Kim is always right.
Exactly.
But anyway, it was a great turnout. Got a lot of tickets for anything that day, so it went well. Great fun.
That's a good success. Thank you all for your hard work. And let's go to Doc Smith. Does he have anything on Doc Smith? All right. Awesome. You're having any now right now, or not sure? No. You're in festival leaves mode, so I'm just gonna leave you alone. Me too. When we were here 2 weeks ago, Brett told us about the program, and I just wanted to update and tell you that we've got 40,000 in sponsorships. Which is impressive. Another kudos to the club. We had talked about sending you an email, weekly emails stating that we were going to collect money for Coach for Kids for 3 Fridays. You guys blew it out of the water, and we donated $1,000 in 2 weeks of a collection for Coach for Kids. So congratulations to what else? JDRF Law. Give us some info on that.
I'm not really the JDR sponsor person, but we've been part of this rental for many years, and so we've been trying to do our own offer for a few years to help keep it going. And this year we're doing the same thing. I went and picked up some items from Carol this morning, Carol Donaldson, and we will have a walk again at tomorrow morning. We'll start at 9 o'clock, probably try to get people there around 8:30, 8:45. We will have, some treats for the kids, water for everybody who wants to walk. And that'll be starting at the chapel at Randolph Lincoln in the morning. If you want to come join us, please use the main entry there on Academy Drive, and then take a sharp left and you'll see the chapel in front of you. All are welcome in the Rotary, so you can bring yourself if you'd like. And we'll take the usual kind of route that we have passed for the walk, and we'll be sort of limited gifts and t-shirts and so forth. But it's really just the experience of being together again and doing this walk to support JDRF or the Interact Club is a donation. And anybody else who should have received something from Carol to also make a donation for not just the event, but the JDRF. So thanks. Yeah, Carol does promise that we will do the regular events next year. Okay.
I will see you tomorrow morning. And this is from Royal Rotary Club's JDRF walk, so please come, please show your support for this event. We've been doing this for a while, and it's really important for us to show the face of Rotary in the community. So I look forward to seeing you there. I'm gonna stop. I'm taking the lead of some other clubs. We have a meeting once a month of the area presidents. One of the things that the clubs have been doing since we've been separated the past 2 years, or we've sort of not been quite involved in doing reintroductions. So I am gonna call on 4 members today to introduce themselves to you briefly and give you a little bit about why they're here in Rotary. So Jamie, you want to go first because I know you got to do that.
I am the branch leader at the Truist branch there out Run, formerly known as BB&T. I've been a member of this club since 2017. I was just telling Debbie, I'm pretty sure my sister invited me as a breakfast. You got me to be an idol, but my sister invited me as a visitor, and because I told her, I said, I don't know that I'm going to be able to dedicate every Friday. And a very busy schedule, so came as a guest or visitor, and it was right before the JDRF walk, and Carol was talking about it, and I mentioned it, and I said, oh, the Rotary Club sponsors that, and she said, yeah. I said, then yeah, I'm definitely going to be a member, because JDRF, I've been a part of that for a long time. My god's time was back type 1 diabetes. He was 8 years old, so we had been on the walk. I just never knew that Rotary sponsored it. I'm very glad that I became a member of this club. It is made a lot of friends, and all the events that we do to give money back to the community. It's what we do. So I mean, unfortunately, I'm not the best at recruiting people, but I tell everyone about it. We do business owners and stuff. It's definitely that I'm so glad to be part of. Thank you, Lord.
Hey, Jamie, I got tasty.
You got.
All right, Debbie, you want to share with us?
Actually, next week, I don't recall. It's been a lot of years.
Okay, all right, I'll give you a little time. Derek, you want to introduce yourself and share a little bit?
Great pleasure. First Rotary meeting I went to was Carl Beck, California. It was around 1998. I think a friend of mine stopped and picked me up on a Friday and said, "We're going to go to a golf course today." I'm like, that sounds good. Did I bring my clubs? No. So we went to the golf course, and there was this big car show on the golf course. So we walked around with cars. Well, it was a Rotary meeting. What it was on a Friday. And so they were asking for donations for a number of things and supporting the community. This was a club probably of about 150 members, I think. And so eventually I was asked to join. I didn't at that time, but I kind of knew what Rotary was doing, especially back in the day. Fast forward to about 2012, here in Royal at the campus. So Silent comes by my office and says, "Come on, Derek, we're going to go to Rotary today." I'm like, oh, here we go again. So we go to Rotary at the Holiday Inn up in town, and spent the lunch hour with you folks, many more of you at that time, and really enjoyed the session. Can't remember exactly what the presentation was that day, but I I was asked probably the next week by General Hodgins back there if I would reintroduce Interact Club on campus. And so I finally put it all together, two and two, and they're working together to get me into Rotary and get me to do the Interact Club on campus. So, yeah, not because I had more time on my hands, but I felt it was the right time. And to get back involved or be involved in such a way in the community on campus and really throughout. So I joined, that was 10 years ago, so I did have my anniversary. I think it was just last month, 10 years, and that feels good. Joe was my sponsor, Joe Silek, and you know he's an R85 member, so we don't see him much here, and I was kind of told the other day, when will I be R85, and it's going to be a while, so. But I don't really look forward to that necessarily, but I definitely do look forward to all of the events that we plan. The next one coming up, besides the walk tomorrow, is the cash bash. We have Dog Smith coming up. And while I'm preparing with the Interact Club to do these things, we're all preparing to do these things, and it kind of keeps us engaged from time to time. I really like that. I've always sort of the speed bumps of life, you know, kind of makes you slow down and take stock of what's really important in life, and then those happen with Rotary. So I really enjoy that and get a lot out of it. I hope you all do too.
Thank you. One more, Rick.
And thank you, Lori. So Rotary had been part of my life and didn't even realize it since I was a kid, even though my dad was Hawaiian for a little while. He wasn't involved very long. He was a school teacher, so Fridays at lunch are not going to be compatible with that. But Rotary sponsors my Little League team, my Babe Ruth team. Alan Weimer was my baseball coach, along with my dad. And we had a group called the Pride Group, which meant something different back in the 90s.
I was I was saying something.
It was an anti-drug group, Parents Resource Institute for Drug Education, I think is actually what it stood for. And we came several times to the Rotary Club when we were over at Quality Inn upstairs to do our performance of our skits and ask for some money to help us go to Atlanta and Orlando for the convention. So Rotary was pretty important to me growing up, and I didn't even realize it. I didn't realize that the men, and at the time it was men, in that room were really influential in our community. People I respected, John Marlow being one of them. John wrote, I didn't remember, but he wrote a letter of recommendation to help me secure an internship with Congressman Wolf. And there was other men in the room at the time that had a lot of influence and impacted me growing up. So when I came back to Memorial to work for Edward Jones in 2000, about a year and a half in, I sought this club out. Because I knew that this was the club of the movers and shakers, the doers of the community, and I wanted to be a part of that. So I asked Eddie Morrison. We were sitting at a picnic for the Methodist Church, which is where I grew up. We were out at the 4-H Center and we were in shelter, and I said, Eddie, I said, you're in Rotary, right? He said, yes. I said, how can I join? He goes, come with me to lunch. So I did, and so that was 21 years ago, in January, in November. I was the second youngest member at the time. Daniel Pond is a year behind me. He joined at the same time I did. And the next one, I think the next youngest person was Doug Stanley. Now Doug was only 5 years older than me, so he was only about 34 years old at the time, I think. But still, we aged into this club, and my wife wasn't all that thrilled about coming because there wasn't a whole lot of young people, and she's 5 years younger than I am. So she wasn't all that thrilled, but then all of a sudden one day we looked around and went, hold on a second, there are a lot of people our age. So we either did a good job recruiting or we aged into that group. So, but that's why I was in it because of what it did for the community, and what it did for me and what it did for the Front Royal community. When I went to India, though, and I've said this, you might have heard me say this, when I went to India, I think it was 2017, past 5 years of all blended together, that was when I realized the global impact of Rotary and how much it's different than just what's going on here in Front Royal and Warren County. We make a great difference. Dot Smith does. I mean, literally puts food in people's bellies. JDRF raises money for people with research. Polio does the same thing for people in our community, but also globally. And getting to meet Indian Rotarians or even California Rotarians, which it's a different world in itself. But to meet these other Rotarians from across the world and work together on a common mission and understand this brotherhood humanity that we have, that really opened my eyes up to what Rotary could really do to change. And I asked Ron Napier the other night, I said, Ron, how are we different than Kiwanis or Elks? Are they doing these things? And he actually didn't know the answers. I kind of want to find out the answer because we talk about all the great things that we do. I have to imagine they do some of the similar things. I know that the Lions have the brooms, and I've seen the eyeglasses selling brooms for eyeglasses. Kiwanis has a lot of stuff for kids, but we shoot some really awesome things when it comes to disaster relief, polio, and literacy and WASH programs, and that's really what this drives me. And as you probably know, I'm the youth coordinator for the district now, and one of my favorite quotes, and I'm blanking on who said it, but she said essentially that every generation we are invaded by barbarians, and we call them children. And I think it's our responsibility to shape those children, and that's why I'm also any civic organization I'm going to belong to. I celebrate and because these civic institutions are what form us and create a civil society that we are not just beating each other up. We're not at war. This is the way for us to get along. And what's wonderful about this room is that Kim Kump and I can be in the same room and not fight. We might do that on the street now, but we don't actually on the street anymore, or wouldn't do that. But no, in this room, we are apolitical, we're secular, and we can just all come together for a common mission and a common good. And that's what gets me to come here every Friday. And I hope we see more people come on Fridays to fellowship. Because it's great for the service, but we are a membership organization, and the membership starts right here in this room at these tables. And I hope that we can bring more people in and celebrate that fact. So thank you. That was a little longer than you wanted, but thank you.
You're passionate about it, so we gotta let you go. Thank you. I just want you to get a feel for who you are sitting across the table from. I want you to know why these people sit in these seats every week and why they make it a point to make time in their schedule to be here. And we want you in the room. We want you here and connecting with each other so we can do great things in this community. Let's go ahead and do happy dollars. When you started talking about eyeglasses or lines, I thought you were going to suggest Rotary Bedford, and I was like, no. Okay, who's happy?
Okay, Lori, can I say something about, I'll be happy to, we're having a but I just wanted to make sure that if you haven't told me that you're coming or not coming to Monster Mash, if you could do that for you today. And if you would like to buy 100 tickets, I have them. Please.
Cool.
Happy? All right, yeah, I don't have that kind of thing. Sorry. I'm happy because I made it to Rotary today. I'm happy because the weather is fantastic for Festival of Leaves this weekend. I'm happy to remind you that Block Party, I think the gates open at 6, I think, and the band goes on stage at 7. That I know for sure. Down at the $5 entrance. There's memorable cups, there's all kinds of fun stuff. Food trucks, it's great. Festival of Leaves tomorrow, all the way down Main, all the way down Chester to 2nd Street. We've got over 100 vendors to be off from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's 8 bands throughout the day. It's a fun weekend. And I'm happy to share that with you.
Now breathe.
I did 5. All right, well, I'm happy because I passed my real estate broker's exam this week, so I've been working for a name or something. And like John, it shows up in and then the Cleveland Guardians are playing the New York Yankees. They lost their first game, but it's okay. We're gonna come back. It's fine. They're the Guardians.
I've got a happy dollar. I want to welcome our brand new member, Amy Moyer, into the club. We're excited to have her. She's a Williams, by the way. Anyway, So welcome to Amy. Anyone else?
I have one that I'll share too. I'll have to Venmo it. But I was in the paper today and I appreciate it. I received my Charter Advisor in Philanthropy designation, which just tells you, it signals that I know what I'm doing when it comes to fundraising and helping you move assets from your bank account or your investment account to a nonprofit in a tax efficient and a positive way. But I'm really excited. That's CFP TAP, and that's the designation that I've been working for, and I'm really excited to be able to have those behind my name.
All right, Monster Mash Cash Bash, as Ken said, I'm gonna reiterate this one. Please get your RSVPs in. We have that number in the golf club. I'm sending a sign up link via email today, so you can sign up to help us out with 50/50 sales there for half-hour shifts and registration table. That's all of that. But again, attendance report, Debbie.
I can do that.
Thank you.
President Laurie fell over Rotarian today. John Marlow has a guest, which you might introduce.
President Lauren, fellow Rotarians, I'm pleased today to have my wife and his mother, Joyce, birthday girl for the boss.
Welcome, Joyce. We have 10 members, 10 online, and 19 in person for a total of.
Okay. All right. It's my pleasure, Emma. Thank you for your patience. It's my pleasure to introduce our very own Emily Marlow Beck. She's going to talk to us about using your vocation for social good. And you can just take 2 seconds and do your little intro and about why and why. Yeah,
I will, while I set up, no, I want to talk. I'm gonna set this up first. I'll let you save my introduction up why I'm a writer for another day. So that's personal. I'll get myself. So I'll start by saying that's pretty bright light, but aside from that, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to talk about, what this talk is, and what it's not. So really quickly, I would say what this is not. This is not talk about my company or bragging about my company or anything that we did, except for to say that I am unabashedly proud of my team, and so it loses out of my course. There's not much I can do about it. It just happens. It's not on purpose. And so, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what I think was a phenomenal experiment. And the experiment was what happens when you take an entity, a company that is unabashedly for-profit, unabashedly, in a industry where we make money, and we take a month and we infuse kindness into that month. What happens to that entity? And so a lot of you guys have heard, we did this thing called 75 Acts of Kindness in July. I'm going to hopefully take you behind the scenes a little bit and give you some of the lessons that we learned as we went through this process, things we learned about ourselves, about our community, about just business in general. And so that's really what I'm trying to do. So my person here, we'll go ahead and change the slide. How it all started. Before we get to how it all started, I'm going to throw some numbers out here at you. We committed to doing 75 acts of kindness in the month of July. Ultimately, we moved way past 75 acts. We spent countless hours. We donated over 2,500 books. We fed over 150 people. We donated several pints of blood, donated over 150 pounds of dog food to area animal shelters, flowers to over 50 retirement home residents, truckloads of food, cleaning supplies, and paper products. Ultimately, we did that and so much more in a month. But it didn't start there. This is kind of how it all started. Now, this young man that you can barely see, this dapper gentleman riding the Jeep, is young John Marlow. This was not 1947, but this picture was taken sometime later. But we're celebrating our 75th anniversary, and we did some strategic planning at the beginning of this year, and we set some goals and our management team together. And one thing that we just kind of felt like it was a time to celebrate our roots. We felt like it was a time to really think about what it meant to be local. I mean, we all talk about being local and shop local and what happens when you shop local, and no one can dispute that's a good thing. But when you've been around for 75 years, it requires a little bit something different, a little little something more. And so we just really thought about it, and we left the strategic planning session thinking, okay, we want to somehow this year do something that is unabashedly global in a measurable and tangible way. But we had no idea what that was. So we said, it'll come to us. So that's where we came up with the 75 acts. And, you know, I wish I could think it was some glorious idea. Really, it's me driving in my car, and I did the math, and I said, well, there's 25 work days in this month, and relocations, our Tri-State Nissan store in Winchester, our Marlow Ford store in Luray, and Marlow Motor Company in Front Royal. 3 times 25 is 75. What if we did an act of kindness every day in the month of July? Then we hit our 75 acts for 75 years, and you know, I thought everyone would think I was a little goofy, but you know, let's give it a try. We'll see how it goes. So my first lesson that I learned, this ain't no sorority project. I will tell you, I went into this thinking, I used to be a pledge trainer in a sorority. If I can herd, you know, 100 first-year students to get them to do service projects, I most certainly can get my team to do service projects. So I really approached this at the beginning as a top-down. I'm going to come up with 75 acts, and I'm going to have a sign-up sheet. We're going to pass around the clipboard. We're going to get everybody to sign up, and you know, easy peasy done. This is great. And I learned very quickly that that was a horrible mistake. In fact, at about July 6th, I think is when the panic set in. And I remember going to some of my management team, and I said, oh my gosh, we told all these people we're going to do 75 acts of kindness, and we are way behind pace. Like we just haven't, we're not in pace at all. And somewhere along that line, we realized we were doing this totally wrong. If we really wanted to do this right, this could not be a top-down initiative. This had to be a bottom-up initiative. And so around that time, when we started getting feedback from our team and realizing that they knew what they cared about, they knew what they were motivated about, then we got better. This particular picture, this is my e-commerce director, Brian, and my used car director, Greg, and they are landscaping the homeless shelter in Winchester, this new property, and it's overgrown, and they took a day off and landscaped. Oh, when I say landscape, they before everything else, because there's no landscaping there. And they did. These are my two of my top managers setting the example. So when they're out there doing this on their day off, okay, suddenly we've got some attention, suddenly we've got some homework. The second lesson I learned, I jokingly say you gotta stay salty. And the lesson here, this is a young salesperson of ours. He's 19, I think he's 20 now. And he was at Dunkin' Donuts buying coffee for strangers. That was his act of kindness that he did. And we posted all this stuff on social media, really to get the word out. And this was the first instance I had someone posted back on us that said something like, this isn't kindness. If you were kind, you would do it in private, you would tell anyone about it. Well, I'll tell you, that one bothered me a little bit. And I you know, say what people want. You know, listen, I'm a car dealer, I'm a recovering attorney. I know I started every relationship in my own end zone. I get that. Like there's a trust that I have to earn. But you know, this is my team, this is my guy, so it really bothered me. So I went home, I talked to my husband. By that point, I had found the name and the address of the person who wrote the comment. I had the card, I was about to buy a coffee gift card and a write-up letter and say, by the way, just between you and me, you look like you need a cup of coffee. And I was about to mail it to him. And my husband says, calm down, calm down. He was like, what do you expect? You know, what do you expect? You're out in the world. And he's like, and you know, he's like my life coach. He was like, you're supposed to be the salt of the world. He says, you can't let that bother you. So every morning when I would leave, my husband would say, stay salty. And I was like, okay, I got it. We'll stay salty because people will, when you go out and you do something different, there will be people who judge you. There will be people who say, well, check your motive. Why are you doing this? And you know, fortunately, there wasn't much of it. There was a little bit of it where people thought we were disingenuous, but for the most part, we are incredibly well received. But you introduce something like this, you got to stay salty. We'll then fix again. Lesson number 3, writing checks don't check all the boxes. I'll tell you, as business owners, we get asked to write checks all the time. Sponsor this team, do this, and we need to. Like, there's a real value in it. I mean, obviously, look at what we do here. There's a lot of needs. But I'll tell you, your team doesn't know you're doing it. They might go to the ballpark and say, oh, I didn't know we sponsored that little league team. They don't know. And so it doesn't really trickle down into your organization. It doesn't change culture the way that we want it to. And so, you know, writing checks doesn't check all the boxes. One of the goals we had was, how do we get from all throughout the organization, how do we get everyone engaged? And I like this picture because these are some of our employees that maybe you wouldn't see. Maybe they're not the face all the time. Maybe they're behind the scenes and they're out passing water bottles to strangers really during the fireman's parade. They're getting engaged. We're incorporating them. They're part of it. They're part of the process. They're part of the experience. And you really don't get that when you're just writing the check. You gotta put them a little bit of sweat. Lesson number 4, you gotta get your hands dirty. These are a couple of my team from Winchester. They're at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley harvesting vegetables to go to CPAP because the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley has a vegetable garden there. But they don't have anybody to harvest the vegetables. So they're out there harvesting vegetables and to take them to the Club Creek in Winchester. And you know, when we were asked to do this, we had volunteers to dig in the dirt. Thinking, is anybody going to really want to go and dig in the dirt? I'm going to tell you, they absolutely do. Your team wants to do something where they can get their hands dirty, where they can go home to their families at night and tell their kids or whatever, and say, "This is what I did today." Something tangible, something that they can, something that is that's it. Lesson number 5. Your people will blow you away with their amazing skills and interests. Like, go back to a few slides ago when I had this sign-up sheet. My sign-up sheet had a lot of little things. This project was completely from start to finish, designed, done, and executed by my team. I didn't even know they were doing it. I knew what day, but this is a NW Works. We had a crew that went out. NW Works, if you don't know, it's Winchester. It's an organization that works with adults with developmental disabilities. They landscape, they refurbish the sign. These are my technicians. These guys have skills, right? And so they're doing something that I would have never envisioned us being able to do. If you had asked me to come up with a list of service projects, this probably wouldn't have made it because I wouldn't have thought to do it. But when you allow your program to be, you know, employee-led, you come up with stuff. One of the head guys who put this together and came up to me later and he thanked me. He said, "Thanks for letting me do this." And I said, "Well, what made you want to do it? Why did you pick this?" And he says, "Well, you know, I've got a family member with some disabilities, and this program means a lot to me. So this meant a lot to me that you were able to support us in being able to do this." And so, again, engagement. You're just writing checks and you don't get to include all your employees and learn about what their passions are. Lesson number 6, sometimes no skills are needed. I love this one, partly because this was a really special night for my family, but because my family's there. That 13-year-old is my 13-year-old son, and we cooked out for the house of folk that night. We had a barbecue, and we kept it really small. We didn't have a lot of team members there because we just wanted to respect the dignity of the situation. And so, you know, my 13-year-old passed out ice cream, and I laughed because what was needed for that night, we already had, and that was just human contact, human relationships. Just my 13-year-old talked about NBA basketball, and that was what was needed that night. No one needed to do anything, no one needed to be anything. They just needed to show up and be human, and we're all capable of doing that. So sometimes that's what we need. We just need to protect people. Lesson number 7. Doing something like this will give your team perspective. This is a true story. July was the worst month for us so far with inventory shortages. National inventory shortages, you guys know that we've had them. And I remember one day in July, I pulled up at our Nissan store and there were 6 cars on the lot. 6. We might have 600 in our normal country, 6. So I go to the general manager and I said, "Are we mowing? Do we move all the cars? Where'd they go?" And he looked at me, I thought he was gonna cry. He said, "Well, there's a stop sale. We need to pull them all back. We're not allowed to sell them because of a recall issue. You can't keep parts and blah, blah, blah." So I sat there and I thought to myself, oh no, I've got a team of salespeople. This is how they feed their families. I have nothing for them to sell. And what is this going to mean for their morale? And are they going to freak out? What's going on? And I remember going to one of my team members saying, "How are you doing? How are you doing?" And she looked at me and she said, "You know, I spent the morning packaging food at CPAC." She says, "So I'm going to be okay because I've got dinner time." She says, "You know, not everybody else will. We'll get through this. We'll be all right. Just a few more days, another truckload will show up because I've got food in my house, so a lot of people don't." And I, you know, I think of the timing of how we did this. The timing probably was perfect because there wasn't a lot of cars. There wasn't a lot of room for people to get discouraged, and just serving other people kept our team. They kept their things in perspective and allowed us to just keep everybody moving. I may have got my numbers mixed up, but the next lesson, lesson number 7, they call your people will blow you away by what they give of themselves. You know, a little inside baseball, we people were on payroll when they were doing this stuff, so we paid them. They were out, you know, doing stuff, and they were still working. But some of these bigger projects, people did on their own time, and it really shocked me how committed they were. This is Wendy, she's our finance manager. I'm just giving you a heads up, she's coming to the Halloween party, and she will probably win the costume contest. If you know her, she will probably win. She's got probably got the best costume, she always does every year, but she's our finance manager in Front Royal, and that's her husband, and they took a day off and painted. The Warren Coalition has some recovery homes, and this is a recovery home in Warren Coalition, and she's, you know, they're painting some rooms in the recovery home. It just, they'll blow you away with what they give up themselves. You know, no questions asked. Again, it's one of those things I didn't even know was happening until they told us it was happening. Lesson number 8, helping to teach us, connect us, and give us a pride of contribution. This, you can't tell this. This is the van for the Front Royal Thermal Shelter. And this is one of our detailers. He's been with us for a really long time. And, you know, a little story about this is when they came to pick up the van after we detailed it, Anita, who's great, she says, well, I want to meet you guys detail it. So I go get him and I bring him up, and he didn't know, and this is failure on our part, you know, he got the ticket to detail the vehicle. He didn't know who the vehicle was for. He just didn't know the vehicle. So we're walking up and I'm explaining to him what's going on. And I'm explaining to him who he needs this vehicle for. And, you know, we got a picture, we did stuff. And as we're walking back, he says to me, that would explain what we're learning. And that would explain, and then we had a little chat about homelessness and people we know and just how real the problem is. I don't think that conversation happens without this opportunity. And I'll tell you, he smiled the whole time because he was part of something. Again, you know, he was part of making a difference. And whenever, you know, we talk about thermal shelter or something, I'm like, yeah, remember you helped us, you did this. And so that's how we can include all of our people and connect them. Lesson number 9, sometimes the kindness continues. This gentleman, this is the same gentleman earlier, he's on the left. He's from El Salvador. He's 19. He is raising his 13-year-old brother. He's a top worker. He is just a hustler. And he was volunteering for translating for medical services in Winchester. And at the end of the day, he says, you know, I can find time in my day to do this. So he signed up to be a volunteer. I can't tell you how many of our employees have signed up to continue volunteering. Just the kindness continues. They found an organization, they're still there, they're making connections, and we benefit. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to move fast. Be open to amazing things you couldn't have planned. This is in Winchester, the newly maternity home. We didn't even know it existed. I'd never heard of it. And so they reached out to us and they said, hey, we hear you're doing acts of kindness. We need some things. And my e-commerce director asked me, he says, you know, what, do you know this group? I said, I don't know this group. So I went to their website, I went to their board, and I said, oh, John Federo, he's on the board there, so they must be okay. Because he's okay, so they must be okay. And so we were able to give them some furniture and give us some care packages. This is an organization that serves the needs of typically unwed mothers. And some of the situations in here are absolutely, you know, just really horrific. But several employees came up to me later and said, I love this project. And they told me stories about what happened to them, what they experienced when they were younger and why this is important to them. Some of them are still volunteering, still working, still trying to contribute. Again, this was nothing that we planned. Sometimes just things happen. When you start doing good things, other good things happen. And so you have to be open to new things. Lesson number 11, your friends will help you. You know, we sent the word out that we were doing this on the left. There is a no back in that picture. I don't know if you guys can recognize them. You guys know them. You know, this is Queen Consulting Technology Services on the left. This is First Bank on the right. They brought recycling materials for us. They brought food for our food drive. It's amazing how many people in the community help support us. People really do want to help this people with us. And then your team will never be the same. This is, our front row team. Here they all are on board. I tell people all the time, when you're managing people, while I've been sitting here, we have probably done 50 transactions at one of our stores. How many customers have gone to our service lane? How many salespeople have gone there? There's been gobs of transactions, and I haven't been part of any of them. I'm here. They're there. So there's two ways to handle that. One is you can micromanage, which you can't. Or two, you infuse culture into their every decision so that even if I'm not there, they're doing things the way that we would have them done. So if you can put resources behind kindness and humility and servanthood and all those things, if you can do that, then when I'm here, they're doing that in their job. So serving someone on Tuesday might mean harvesting vegetables at a vegetable garden, but maybe on Thursday, it means speaking to someone kindly or being patient when they come into your dealership, or maybe it means helping getting a car seat out of a car. If you communicate to your team that kindness is a priority, they'll feel free to engage in kindness as they go through every decision, how they treat their customers. This is a win for everybody. So that, I think that's my last slide. So that, and I'm almost right on time. So does anybody have any questions? Anybody have anything for me about what we did or what we were planning on doing? Probably not. Everybody's like, you're being very kind and saying the 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
guys.
Emily, I just wanted to say, I think that you're applaud for doing this. It's phenomenal. And I see no problem with you promoting what you did. I don't think the person that gets that food from CCAP cares if that Facebook, you all took credit or got credit for it on Facebook or social media, it filled their belly. The person that got a cup of coffee, it warmed their heart. So thank you for what you did. And it's okay to pat yourself on the back because nobody would know you were doing it if you didn't. And you're now other people now know to emulate what you led.
And I'll just say one thing, one of the reasons why we decided to do it is we have all these amazing nonprofits out there that needed to get attention. And so if we could be a mouthpiece for them and their mission, then we would be able to help support them because we have this great influence in being in the middle of the marketplace. And I think there is a social responsibility for that.
To enlighten self-interest.
Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons why we did it. Good and kind of brings it. So, all right, thank you guys.
Now, you know, thank you, Emily. Appreciate that. One great presentation. Have a winner here. Will you pick for me real quick?
Okay, so this is 200372. All right,
Everyone, $3. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Buy a ticket.
All right, next week we are right back here for our meeting again. If you will stand and say before we attest with me.
These three things say or do. First is the truth. Fair to all concerned. Third, will build goodwill and better friendships. Fourth, be beneficial to all concerned.
Have a great week. Thanks for choosing to be here.